Good Sunday morning. I'm Paul Lisnick. Coming up on WGN-TV Political Report. The Illinois Supreme Court sides with Governor Pritzker on banning assault-style weapons statewide, but the legal battle is only beginning. Plus, the road to 2024 starts now. What to expect as political hopefuls flood the Illinois State Fair. And later, how the indictments of former President Donald Trump will impact the presidential election. We're talking to an expert about the political rhetoric surrounding the unprecedented events. And welcome to WGN-TV Political Report. We begin this morning here in Cook County, where top officials say they don't expect any tax increases, even any new taxes, fees to shore up the 2024 budget. The county CFO says the budget gap will come out to about $170 million. Now, that's double the original projection from earlier this summer, but surplus cash and other belt-tightening measures are expected to shore things up. County continuing its guaranteed basic income program and a plan to pay off up to $1 billion in county residents' medical debt. One of the biggest challenges ahead, putting an end to a workforce shortage that dates back to the COVID-19 pandemic. And Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle joins me this morning in our WGN studios. Good Sunday morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Paul. Great to be back.
I know I have to respond. Good morning to you. I know it's that teacher in you. So look, you made residents happy for years when you don't raise taxes, when we don't have new fees. But as you heard me say, we are going to have a gap of $170 million, more than double. How do you do this without raising any of those features?
Well, first of all, we have a budget of almost $9 billion. So 172 or whatever it is like less than 2%. So I'm not really worried. It's a very manageable gap to close. When I first came into office, the gap, as you may recall, was $487 million. So we're in a much better place.
So it can be done?
It can be done.
Is it about surplus funds?
No, we've got to do some belt tightening measures, and we do have some reserves. So.
Okay. Part of the issue I know is negotiating with like 60 unions. You've come to an agreement with over half of them at this point. And the factors are a retroactive 3.5% raise that goes back to 2021, a 5% mid-year increase. What's your guess on what happens with the balance of the unions?
Well, we've come to agreements with the largest of our unions, the Teamsters, AFSCME, and SEIU. And so I imagine that our smaller bargaining units will fall in line.
The Cook County Promise Guaranteed Income Pilot, I know that's important to you. County 9 months into the guaranteed program. 3,250 people getting $500 a month with the goal of giving them more stability and security. Do you have data yet on the impact of that program?
No, we've just been at it about 6 months, and we've had a partnership with the University of Chicago to examine the results for our 3,250 participants, and there's also a control group, so we have a comparison that we can make. And I think it's really important that we have this academic partner so that we can make the case that there are benefits, not just for the individuals, but for their families and our communities. And we also have a lot of anecdotal evidence, but it's always better to have an academic partner to examine the results as well.
What do you say to the detractors who say, look, this is an unearned giveaway, it's not encouraging people to get jobs, and that's what they should be doing?
We've always spent a lot of money in this country on programs and initiatives to help deal with our poverty, the families that are struggling. But we haven't really tried in a systemic way just giving people more money. And what's happened in other pilots and models around the country is people do with the money what all the rest of us do. They invested in food and shelter, education for themselves and their children. And I think that what we'll see in our own model program is the same thing.
Like everybody, I think you had to struggle with keeping employees during the pandemic. It wasn't unique to Cook County, but where does that stand now that we've sort of out of it?
Well, it continues to be a challenge. I mean, I think there are workforce challenges across the board. It's not just in government, but in the private sector as well. And, for a while we saw people, sort of job hopping, right? I think that's settled down a little bit, but we still have challenges in filling positions. And we're trying to make it clear to people that working for the county is a great job. Not only can you have a tremendous impact, but there are great benefits and good colleagues.
Let's talk about property tax bills. It's been announced by your office and others that we won't see the second installment until early November, payment December 1st. Look, a lot of people are happy about that, right? They don't want to pay their taxes, but we probably should let them know what is the impact of that money coming in many months later than the county and everybody else who gets the money expects it.
Well, last year we had a program available to units of government that felt they would be impacted by the delay in revenues coming in. We haven't so far proposed that this year. That's a possibility. But I think what we should remember is for almost 8 years, we got the bills out on time. When I came into office, I looked at our record, and we hadn't gotten the tax bills out on time for 30 years. And so we worked with the stakeholders, I think starting in 2013, to get the bills out on time. And we were on a great path, of course, until the pandemic hit. And then just the difficulties of trying to do any work, government work, complicated as this is, kind of made it difficult for us to get the bills on time. And at the same time, we were instituting new technology innovations to make us more productive in the long run, but that turnover, that opportunity to change, kind of delayed things as well. So we're playing catch up, both from the COVID-related challenges to our workforce and from the new technology, and we think that next year we'll be close to on time.
I'm not sure how much blame gets anybody, but I've had Cook County Assessor Fritz Kagi on the show, Treasurer Maria Pappas on the show, and everybody kind of points. It's never them, it's somebody else. Do you have some insight on where this problem is that leads to this?
You know, look, we're trying to get all the stakeholders together to get the job done, and that's what I want to focus on. And we've said we're going to get the bills out November 1st, due December 1st. I expect that that'll be the case, and next year we'll do better.
The migrants in Chicago, obviously the city of Chicago facing a lot of pressure under that as they're shipped up from Texas and sent here. The mayor has made a very important point of saying, you know, we need more resources from the state and from the feds. How does the county view this in terms of the help that the county is providing for these migrants, the housing, the food, and all that?
Well, the city has taken responsibility for food and shelter, and the county has taken responsibility for health care because we run the health care system. So any asylum seeker that comes into our county is screened, and then if there are vaccinations, for example, for kids that are required or ongoing care, our healthcare system provides it. And we've gotten some help from the state. Clearly we could use more. But I am grateful for our healthcare team stepping up in the way that they have to support these new arrivals.
And you mentioned the state, not the feds. Do you expect more federal assistance through congressional efforts or no?
Well, we've talked to our congressional delegation about the importance of federal support. I can't predict whether it's forthcoming.
Okay, let me ask you about the SAFE-T Act, as you know, upheld by the Illinois Supreme Court. You've called it a transformative moment for the state. There's still a lot of controversy about people who think it won't work. So it's the law now. So what do you think that prosecutors and judges need to be cognizant of as they now begin to live under these new rules? Regarding cash bail, I'm talking about.
Well, you may recall, Paul, that we have been working with stakeholders in the criminal justice arena, again, since about 2013, to try to be sure that we have a collaborative process to reform our criminal justice system. And in 2017, Chief Judge Evans gave an order to his judges that liberty ought to be the default position, not detention. And so since 2017, there's been a dramatic reduction in the reliance on cash bond. And what we've seen in Cook County is that people are released on their own recognizance or with electronic monitoring. The last time I looked at the figures, about 78% of the people were compliant. So 3/4 of the people do everything they're supposed to do. They show up for their hearings, their trial, whatever. And about 95% of the people who are accused of a crime are not brought in on a second charge before the disposition of that case. So basically our defendants are staying out of trouble and meeting the requirements of a defendant in a criminal case. So, you know, I'm very pleased with the way this has worked in Cook County, and I expect it to work just as well across the rest of the state. We're
going to see and monitor that. Interesting little pressure on you regarding the desire for a Latino Illinois Supreme Court nominee, because there's the Black and Latino Democrats concerned. Obviously, you have an African-American female on the court now, Joy Cunningham. She'd like a full term, but of course, Latinos have said, we want Jessie Reyes on the court. What say you? You said you want a woman of color on the court, but there's no Latino representation.
Well, here's the thing. Joy Cunningham was a candidate in 1994 for the Circuit Court. I supported her then. I supported her when she ran for the Supreme Court. She was not the party's nominee, and I supported her. So I'm supporting her now. I believe in her good judgment, her legal expertise, and her character, and I make no apologies for that. I also have worked hard to try to make our slating process as inclusive and open and diverse as possible. And I think, you know, if you look at not just since 2018, but earlier, the Democratic Party has really shifted and tried to be slating candidates that reflect the diversity of our county. And I think we'll see more Latinos slated for judicial positions in this cycle than we have seen before.
The medical debt relief initiative, I mentioned that in the lead into you. To date, the county has abolished over $281 million in debt for over 160,000 residents. Remind us who can apply for this, and people might be watching going, how do I get that relief?
Well, the good thing is you don't have to apply.
Okay, all right, good. Well, that's good news.
So yeah, we have a partnership with a national organization, a not-for-profit called RIP Medical Debt. And they were doing all this work before we ever connected with them. But they had philanthropic support and corporate support. So we're the first government entity to work with them. They have a process of getting agreements with hospital systems and medical groups. They have a memorandum of understanding, I think, with them. And then those groups sell their debt to RIP medical debt instead of collection agencies. So when hospitals and doctors' practices, can't get people to pay their bills, people can't pay their bills, they sell them to collection agencies. Okay. And it's for pennies on the dollar. So RIP buys that debt instead of the collection agencies, sends letters to people saying, your debt has been eliminated, we've cleaned up your credit, go forth and do well.
So it happens. They don't have to worry about applying.
Yeah, the wonderful thing about it is you don't have to apply.
Oh.
And as you pointed out, about 160,000 families in Cook County have had their medical debt eliminated, their credit cleaned up, and there were no barriers to entry here. It's RIP's algorithm that works this out and sends them a letter saying it's done.
It's a new day in the city. Mayor Brandon Johnson, who of course served on the Cook County Board. Your relationship with Ron Emanuel and Lori Lightfoot had their ups and downs to it.
Mostly downs, yes.
Oh, okay, well, you said that, there you go. So talk about your relationship with Brandon Johnson, though, and what you see going forward through a 4-year term with him.
Well, I didn't take a position in the first round of the mayor's race. I had
Then you endorsed him.
My own alderman, one of my state reps, Cam Buckner, an old friend, Rod Sawyer. I mean, I had a number of people in the race. But on March 1st, I started working for Brandon Johnson and did everything I could to garner support for him, both financial and political. So I was very grateful to see him elected on April 4th. We meet every couple weeks and talk about issues of mutual concern to the city and the county.
So it sounds like a good relationship.
Yes, I am very grateful to have a partner across the hall.
All right, Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle. It's been a while, so thank you. We had a lot of catching up to do.
Yes.
And I'm glad we did. Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot,
much.
Paul.
All right, we're going to take our first break. Coming up next on WGN-TV Political Report, Illinois' assault-style weapons ban stays in effect, for now anyway. Why a win at the state Supreme Court doesn't mean Democrats have the final say on the issue. Don't go anywhere.